Kevin Stefanski is losing the locker room. And Shedeur Sanders might be the reason why. The trust is fraying. In leaked Browns training footage, Shedeur doesn't look cautious or hurt. He looks electric. His footwork, velocity, and vision scream readiness. Yet every week, he watches from the sidelines while the coach repeats the same tired phrases about evaluating.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
An improvement. Players aren't blind. Neither are fans. The emotional toll of watching elite talent buried under stubborn leadership is becoming a crisis inside the franchise. This isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a referendum on leadership. Stefanski's hesitancy has gone from strategic to self-serving, revealing a pattern of delays and manipulative narratives. The fans' frustration is no longer reactionary. It's rooted in clear evidence. Shedeur isn't just prepared, he's being suppressed. And as this footage spreads, the silence from the coaching staff grows louder. At some point, refusing to adapt stops being strategy and starts being. The Browns had one job: develop talent, manage injuries, and make decisions that push the franchise forward. Instead, they've backed themselves into a corner, and it all blew up the second that Shedeur Sanders' training video leaked. The tape said everything the coaching staff wouldn't. Shedeur looked sharp. His footwork was tight. His reads were fast. The ball placement? Clinical. There was no hesitancy, no sign of someone unsure or recovering. No limp. No restriction. Just a quarterback operating at a high level. Clearly capable, clearly NFL ready. So when that footage hit social media, it flipped the Browns' narrative on its head. All season, the line had been, he's not ready. Then, he's still recovering from a back issue. And more recently, we're still evaluating. But what exactly is there left to evaluate when the kid is outworking your starter and you've got the tape to prove it? The coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, has been stuck in a holding pattern, feeding the press canned statements, avoiding specifics, leaning into vagueness every time the heat rises. And now, thanks to the leak, the public knows it. The excuses look weaker than ever, and fans aren't buying it. They're not just frustrated. They're insulted. Because if Shedeur looks this good in a training video the public wasn't even supposed to see, it begs the question, what else is the staff hiding? Why is he still on the sidelines? And most importantly, what is this really about? Because by now, it's clear this isn't about health. It's not about playbook familiarity. And it's definitely not about performance. It's about ego. It's about control. It's about Kevin Stefanski protecting his authority, even if it means dragging down the very team he's supposed to be building. The idea that Shedeur is being held back due to a supposed back injury has started to look like a cover, a smokescreen masking the coach's unwillingness to acknowledge a threat to the current power structure. Because once Shedeur hits the field and delivers, the illusion of control starts to crumble. The staff's decisions, rotations, and strategies all get thrown under the microscope. And right now, that's the last thing they want. The Shedeur situation has cracked open something bigger. Fans aren't just mad about one player being sidelined. They're furious at the pattern, the manipulation, the delays, the refusal to take accountability. This is the symptom of a broken system, one that prioritizes protecting the old guard over embracing what's working now. And it's not just fans noticing. The media's pressure has hit a new level. Local and national outlets are asking hard questions. Analysts are calling out the inconsistencies. And every time Stefanski steps in front of a mic with more generic nothing statements, the spotlight gets hotter. We need to do better doesn't mean anything anymore. We're evaluating just sounds like stalling. He's not ready doesn't pass the eye test. And here's what's worse. Every week that Shedeur doesn't start is another week of wasted momentum. The bye week should have been the turning point. A clear opportunity to adjust, to switch gears, to send a message that the team was ready to compete in the second half of the season. Instead, it was more of the same. No shakeups, no bold moves, just silence, injury, ambiguity, and a bizarre refusal to address the most obvious solution right in front of them. That silence is costing them. Internally, the locker room is reportedly losing faith. When players see talent ignored, when they watch their teammate perform and get nothing in return, trust in leadership erodes. Quickly, if Stefanski thinks he can maintain control while pushing narratives no one believes, he's misjudging the modern NFL and his own team. Because Shedeur didn't just walk into the Browns building with hype. He walked in with discipline, consistency, professionalism, everything the franchise claims to want in a leader. And the moment that video surfaced, fans saw the contrast laid bare. One man is doing the work, and the other is doing damage control. So what now? How long does this delay drag on? Until it's too late to salvage the season? Until the locker room splinters beyond repair? Or until fans completely check out? The city of Cleveland has been patient. Too patient. They've watched season after season of near misses, locker room drama, and coaching missteps. But this time feels different. This time, the symbol of progress is being actively stifled, and the fan base knows it. The flood of online support for Shedeur isn't just about wanting to see him play. It's about wanting to believe in the team again. Wanting to believe that leadership is capable of identifying and acting on talent when it presents itself. Instead, they're being shown that politics and optics are still running the show. And if a franchise thinks this will blow over, they're in for a rude awakening. The footage isn't going anywhere. The questions won't stop. The pressure will only grow, especially with every underwhelming performance that reminds fans of who's not on the field. Stefanski and the coaching staff had a chance to control the narrative. They could have framed Shedeur's rise as a calculated, smart elevation of talent. But by dragging this out, they've let the story slip out of their hands. Now, it's not about grooming a rookie quarterback. It's about ego obstruction and failure to adapt. Every week that Shedeur sits feels less like development and more like sabotage. And every vague injury update feels like a power move disguised as caution. Fans have seen this pattern before. Promising talent wasted by indecision. Coaching staffs too stubborn to pivot. The long-term damage doesn't just affect this season. It affects the future of the franchise. Because if leadership is willing to suppress star power out of fear, what does that say to current and future players? It says loud and clear, performance isn't what matters here. Politics is. And let's be honest, how long can that model survive? Players talk. Agents notice. The league watches. A reputation for squandering talent sticks. It doesn't just hurt morale. It affects recruitment, free agency, and long-term development. It tells the next Shedeur Sanders that this might not be the place to grow. Meanwhile, Shedeur keeps working. Showing up. Doing his part. Letting the results speak louder than the silence from upstairs. He doesn't need to stir the pot. The tape already did that. And the people, they're paying attention. So here we are. A franchise at a crossroads. Leadership can either acknowledge what's been laid bare in broad daylight, or they can double down on delay and denial. But make no mistake, the fan base won't forget how this played out. They won't forget who kept them waiting, who chose ego over execution, who let pride get in the way of progress. The Shedeur tape didn't just expose a readiness to play. It exposed a leadership crisis. And unless that's addressed, the Browns risk wasting not just a season, but a rare shot at revitalization. If you're watching this unfold week after week, wondering how we got here, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Shedeur should have started by now? Has the coaching staff lost touch with reality? Hit like if you're over the excuses. Share this with someone who's been yelling at their screen like you. And subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because trust, this drama isn't cooling off anytime soon. The Cleveland Browns have officially crossed into uncharted territory, not because they're losing games, but because they're losing credibility. The Shedeur Sanders training video didn't just cause a ripple. It cracked open every fault line that's been quietly forming under Kevin Stefanski's leadership. It's no longer about when Shedeur might start. It's about why he hasn't already, and what that says about this team's priorities, decision-making, and long-term direction. Let's not play dumb. The footage made one thing clear. Shedeur isn't some raw, unpolished backup who's still adjusting to the NFL tempo. He's there. Speed, confidence, poise, command, it's all on display. The guy looks more prepared than half the starting quarterbacks across the league right now. So why is Cleveland, a team desperate for a breakout leader under center, pretending like it hasn't found him? Because this isn't about readiness. It's about control. Stefanski's entire response to the situation, if you can even call it a response, has been one big exercise in deflection. Empty statements. Evasive language. That go-to line, "we're still evaluating," has become a punchline. There's no substance behind it. No timeline. No transparency. Just vague, PR-crafted soundbites that sound more like damage control than strategy. And let's talk about that back injury excuse. A supposed nagging issue that's conveniently kept Shedeur sidelined, just long enough to avoid making a real decision. Fans are calling it out. Media analysts are raising eyebrows. And yet, the coaching staff continues to hide behind it, hoping that maybe the noise will die down. It won't. Because this situation stopped being about injury a long time ago. It's about ego. It's about a coach so focused on maintaining control that he's willing to sideline the best quarterback prospect the team has seen in years. It's the oldest play in the book, don't let the new guy shine too soon, or you might expose your own limitations. And that's the part that's got fans fuming. Cleveland doesn't want another development plan. They want results. They want progress. They want a leader who's willing to adapt. Someone who recognizes when the team needs a shift and isn't afraid to pull the trigger. What they've got instead is a coach who's clinging to the wheel as the car drifts off the road. The post-bye week period was Stefanski's chance to pivot. A golden opportunity to reset the offense, re-energize the locker room, and bring in Shedeur with a sense of purpose and momentum. Instead, we got more of the same. No major personnel changes. No new direction. Just more generic platitudes, and a continued refusal to acknowledge the... And here's where it starts to get dangerous. The locker room isn't immune to this drama. Players see what's happening. They know who's balling out in practice. They know who's phoning it in. When they watch a guy like Shedeur outperform the current starter and still get pushed to the side, what message does that send? That politics matter more than performance? That leadership would rather protect their narrative than put the best team on the field? That kind of atmosphere kills morale. You can feel the tension building on the field, in the locker room, and in the stands. The fans aren't just frustrated. They're starting to tune out. Because what's the point in showing up if the front office and coaching staff refuse to evolve? Let's be honest. Shedeur represents more than just a quarterback battle. He's a symbol now, a stand-in for everything the Browns could be if they just stopped getting in their own way. He's done the work. He's stayed disciplined. He hasn't stirred the pot, demanded attention, or gone to the media. He just trains, performs, and waits for an opportunity that somehow never comes. And that's what makes this whole situation even more infuriating. He's not the problem. He's the solution being ignored. It's rare to see someone with this much potential come into a struggling team and offer a clear path forward. Even rarer to see that same person be sidelined, not because they're unprepared, but because leadership is scared of what their success might reveal. Shedeur doesn't just make the Browns better. He exposes everything that isn't working. And maybe that's the real reason they're keeping him off the field. Because if he steps in and shines, what happens to Stefanski's system? What happens to the veterans who've underperformed? What happens to the fragile narratives built around a team that's been stuck in mediocrity for far too long? It all crumbles. And maybe that's exactly what this organization needs. A full reset. A willingness to burn down what's not working and rebuild around something real. Something solid. Something like Shedeur. Instead, they're still stuck in purgatory, too scared to commit, too prideful to change, and too out of touch to realize the damage they're doing. Every week that Shedeur stays benched, the stakes get higher. The locker room grows more restless. The media scrutiny intensifies. The fans grow colder. And the coaching staff? They're running out of places to hide. This isn't a sustainable model. You can't keep preaching accountability while refusing to hold yourself to the same standard. You can't demand excellence from your players and then bench the one who's actually delivering it. At some point, the facade has to break. And when it does, don't expect the fans to be forgiving. Don't expect the players to stick around. Don't expect the media to pull punches. Because this whole situation was avoidable. All it would have taken was one honest decision, one moment of humility, one pivot toward progress. Instead, the Browns chose denial. And now, the spotlight is hotter than ever. The pressure's mounting. The calls for change are deafening. And every day Shedeur trains, sharpens, and improves, that pressure turns into something undeniable. A movement. If Stefanski thinks he can ride this out with more vague statements and meaningless evaluations, he's in for a rude awakening. The people aren't just watching. They're documenting. They're remembering. And they're not going to forget how this played out. This isn't just about one player. This is about culture, identity, vision. And right now, Cleveland doesn't have any of that. What they do have is a young quarterback who's done everything right, and a leadership team doing everything. This is the moment. The inflection point. Either the Browns stop pretending and start playing to win, or they continue down this path of mismanagement and ego-driven indecision. But let's be clear. Shedeur Sanders is not going to be buried quietly. His talent won't be ignored. His work ethic won't be erased. His readiness can't be denied. The tape is out. The truth is obvious. And now it's up to the franchise to decide. Are they going to keep playing defense against their own future? Or are they finally going to step aside and let it unfold? At this point, if the Cleveland Browns were hoping this story would fade, they've officially miscalculated the moment. The Shedeur Sanders situation has grown beyond just a personnel decision. It's not a subplot. It's the main storyline. Every press conference, every game, every injury update is now filtered through the same question. Why isn't he playing? And frankly, no answer the team gives seems to hold up anymore. Let's talk about timing. The Browns aren't exactly sitting at the top of the AFC. They're not coasting on dominance. They're in the thick of it, battling inconsistency, looking for a spark, and stumbling through a season where the window feels like it's closing faster than they expected. So how is it that, with a spark right there in front of them, ready, willing, working, they're still choosing to stall? The answer? Because playing Shedeur means admitting the plan wasn't working. And for some coaches, that kind of honesty is more terrifying than losing. It's almost painful to watch. Stefanski was once hailed as this calm, calculated presence, a guy who could lead with poise. But somewhere along the way, poise turned into passivity. The man doesn't adapt. He manages. And right now, this team doesn't need a manager. It needs a leader. Because if the head coach can't recognize momentum when it's staring him in the face, what exactly is he leading? Let's be blunt. You do not sit a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders when your offense is this stale. You do not wait to see more when every snap in that leaked video shows more than enough. You do not cling to injury protocol logic when the guy is clearly moving, throwing, and leading like he's ready to suit up tomorrow. The video leak blew the lid off everything. It wasn't supposed to be public. It wasn't meant to get this big. But once it did, that was it. Fans saw it. Analysts saw it. Players definitely saw it. The illusion collapsed in a matter of hours. And now the Browns can't walk it back. They can't pretend this is all part of a long-term plan. They can't tell the public Shedeur needs time to develop when he looks more polished than what they're putting on the field every Sunday. The truth is out there, and the team's response has been, quite frankly, insulting. Injury excuses that don't match the footage. Progress reports with no details. The same tired script. He's not ready. Ready for what, exactly? Because what fans are seeing is a guy who could walk onto that field and instantly inject life into an offense that desperately needs rhythm, energy, and leadership. And what they're also seeing is a coaching staff that's either blind to that fact or deliberately ignoring it. And if it's the latter, that's not just a misstep, it's a betrayal. The Shedeur Sanders conversation has become symbolic. He represents every smart decision this team hasn't made, every risk they didn't take, every spark they refused to ignite. He's the physical manifestation of potential being benched by fear. This isn't the kind of thing that stays internal, either. This is the sort of mishandling that sticks, that shapes public perception, that makes free agents think twice. Because when a franchise repeatedly ignores logic in favor of protecting egos, it signals something toxic under the surface. This is no longer just about one player's playing time. It's about the Browns' willingness or inability to evolve. And then there's Shedeur himself. Let's not lose sight of what makes this even more impressive and tragic. He hasn't lashed out. He hasn't taken cheap shots. He hasn't gone to the media to throw anyone under the bus. The guy has done everything right. And yet, his reward is being locked out of an opportunity he's earned. There's something seriously wrong when the only thing holding a player back is the insecurities of the people in charge. Every Sunday that goes by with Shedeur on the bench chips away at the credibility of this coaching staff. Every sideline shot, every clip of him standing with a helmet and a headset instead of under center, it just reinforces the narrative that this team is holding itself back. And fans are done being patient. They've sat through bad drafts, coaching carousel disasters, and quarterback after quarterback who never panned out. Now finally, there's a guy who could be different. And the coaching staff is refusing to let him prove it. They're actively fighting against the very thing fans have been begging for: progress. What Stefanski doesn't seem to grasp is that this moment, right now, is defining his legacy. Not just in Cleveland, but across the league. Coaches get judged on their decisions, especially when the writing is on the wall, and they still choose the wrong path. He could have embraced this leak as validation. He could have said, "Yeah, you saw it. He looks good. Let's see what he can do on the field." That would have been bold. That would have been real leadership. Instead, he's sticking with the script and hoping the storm passes. But it won't. Not when the locker room is whispering. Not when the media is hammering the same questions week after week. And definitely not when the fans are watching this disaster play out in real time. So let's make it plain. Every day that Shedeur Sanders remains benched, this isn't a football issue. It's a cultural issue. It's about identity, accountability, and whether or not this organization actually wants to win. Right now, the scoreboard says no. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. They can either pull the trigger, put the best talent on the field, and start repairing the trust they've lost, or they can keep feeding the public the same vague lines and hope no one notices the ship sinking. But guess what? Everyone's noticing. So what do you think? Has Shedeur earned the starting job? Should the Browns stop stalling and finally make the obvious call? Or are they too far gone? Drop your take in the comments, because this fan base has seen enough smoke and mirrors. If you're tired of the politics, hit that like button. If you've had this debate 10 times this week already, send this to someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you want to follow every twist in what might be the most self-inflicted meltdown of the season. Because something's got to give, and soon.